विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदांत स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा welcome all of you to our daily Bhagavad Gita reading session. We are reading Bhagavad Gita as it is. We have completed chapter 1. Now we are in chapter 2. Yesterday we had read until verse 2.5. So today we will go to verse 2.6. This is a very interesting verse. Just a quick recap what all has happened until now. In chapter 1, that is ending with Arjuna declines to fight and he sat in the chariot casting aside his bow. Rathopastha upavishat visrijya sasarang chapam shoka samvikna manasa. So that was the last verse of first chapter, and thereafter chapter 1 begins with verse 2.1. Tam tatha kripaya vishtam asrupurna kulekshanam visidantam visidam. What is that verse? Tam tatha kripaya vishtam asrupurna kulekshanam visidantam idam vakyam uvacha madhusudana. So seeing Arjuna lamenting and his eyes are filled with tears and he is literally crying, and in this helpless condition Krishna started speaking to Arjuna. And how did he start? He started with chastising Arjuna. Kutastva kasmalamidam visame samupastitam anarya justam aswargyam akurtikaram Arjuna. Kutastva kasmalamidam, where from this dirtiness come upon you, impurities come upon you, Arjuna? Visame samupastitam, in this hour of crisis, these are anarya justam. These are not befitting for a arya. This is like the deeds of a anarya. Ashwargyam, this will not lead to heaven. Akirtikaram, rather it will bring infamy. Then he started further chastisement. Klaibyam mas magama partha naitattvaya upapadyate kshudram hrudaya darbalyam tyaktvatishta parantapa. He addressing Arjuna that, hey, have you gone impotence? Have you become a coward? Are you a eunuch? Klaibyam mas magamaha partha. O Partha, think of your identity. You are the son of Pritha, who is sister of my father Vasudeva. She belongs to very famous Kshatriya dynasty. You are her son. Have you forgotten that? Tyaktu tishta parantapa. Tyaktva, give off this kshudram hrudaya darbalyam, petty weakness of heart. This so-called compassion is nothing but petty weakness of the heart. Please give up and rise and fight. Udishta. Then yesterday we had seen the verse 5. Arjuna started speaking. Okay. Before that, the fourth verse, he started speaking. Katham bhismam aham sankhe drunang cha madhusudana isuvi prati vatsami pujarha parisudana. Arjuna started speaking, oh, Arisudana, Madhusudana, you are not Ugrasena Sudana, you are not Sandipani Sudana. So how come you have not killed your guru, your grandfather? How come I can kill my grandfather and my guru? I cannot do that. They are worthy of worship. They are not even supposed to be confronted with verbal fight, what to speak of shooting the arrow? Rather, I should offer flower to his lotus feet, to their lotus feet. Pujarha Varishuddha. Then he further says that Gurun ahatva himahanubhavan shreyo bhuktum bhaiksham apiho loke hatvartha kamangstu gurun nihaiva bhunjiyo bhogan rudiraspadikta. And Krishna might speak that, oh, you see, they are siding the side of adharma. Why? Because Duryodhan is giving them the food and shelter. That's the reason they are fighting on their side. So they have a desire for kind of, in one sense, wealth. So Arjuna is telling, so what? After all, they are my worshipable grandfather and Guru. They are Mahanubhavan. So rather it is better for me to beg than killing them. Because if I go into fight, I am very confident that I will win. Because after all, you are my coach and guide. How come defeat can touch me? I will suddenly be victorious, that I do not have any doubt. But then after victory, I will gain the kingdom. But this, of course, I will enjoy the kingdom, but this enjoyment will be tainted with the blood of my relatives. So how come this is enjoyment? This I will not do. Let us see what further he says in verse 2.6. Let us recite. Na chaidat pidmaha kataranno gariyo yadva jayema yadivano jayevu yane vahatva na jijibisama teva sthita pramukhe dhartarashtraha. This is a long verse. In this chapter, some of the verses are long, so this has to be recited in this tune, and many other tunes are there, but this is one of the best tune. Verse 2.6. You can join with me. Na chaidat vidmaha kataranno gariyo.
Na chat vidma kataranno gariyo.
Yadva jayema yadivano jayehu.
Yadva jayamam yadivana jayehu.
Yane mahatva najijivisamas.
Yanen hatva najiji visama.
Teva sthita pramukhe dhartarashtraha.
Deva vasishta paramukhe dhashtrashta.
Very good. Na chaidad vidmaha kataranno gariyo.
Na cheta vidam kataranno gariyo.
Yadva jayema yadivano jayevu.
Yadva jayamam yadiva na jayeyo.
Yane mahatva najijivisamas.
Yanen hatva najiji visama.
Teva sthita pramukhe dhartarashtraha.
Steta vistitha parmukhe dhashtrashta.
Very good. Na chaidad vidmaha kataranno gariyo.
Na cheta vidmana katranyo nagariyo.
Yadva jayema yadivano jayehu.
Yadva jamimyo yadivana jayeyo.
Yane vahatva najijivisamas.
Yane avahatva najiji visama.
Teva sthita pramukhe dhartarashtraha.
Deva vasishta parmukhe dhashtrashta.
Very good. Wonderful. Wonderful. synonyms. Na, nar, cha, also, etat, this, vidmaha, do we know, katarat, which, naha, for us, gariyaha, better, yatva, whether, jayema, we may conquer, yadi, if, va, or, naha, us, jayayuhu, they conquer, yan, those who, eva, certainly, hatva, by killing, na, never, jijibisamaha, we would want to leave, they, all of them, avasthitaha, are situated, pramukhe, in the front, dharta rashtraha, the sons of Dhritarashtra. Translation. Nor do we know which is better, conquering them or being conquered by them. If we kill the sons of Dhritarashtra, we should not care to live. Yet they are now standing before us on the battlefield. So you see here in this verse, there are a lot of if and buts. Nacha etad vidmaha. This is not certainly wise. Vidmaha. Kataranno gariyo. Sorry, vidmaha, no. Okay. Veda means knowledge. Vidmaha, to know. Nacha etad vidmaha kataranno gariyo. So Arjuna is confused here. He is telling Gariyo, what is better? Which is better? Kataranno Gariyo. Nacha etad vidmaha. I do not know which is better for me. Yadva. Okay, between what he is confused? Between two things he is confused. Yadva jayema yadi ba no jayeyuhu. He is telling that whether to conquer them or to be conquered by them. So that means, so how conquering will take place? Means, of course, they have to participate in the war. Then there comes a chance of winning or losing. Winning means to conquer them, to conquer the enemy, and losing means to be conquered by the enemy. So he is comparing these two situations. Let us assume that Arjuna went into fighting and there will be two consequences, winning or defeat. So he is comparing this. He is telling, I do not know which is better. Which is better? You see, is it too difficult to understand? When you participate in a war, which is better? Certainly winning is better. But this external conditions has put Arjuna in such a bewilderment that even he is not able to distinguish very obvious things. So that represents the common jiva. We all should have a natural dispositions and natural attraction towards the Lord. But you see how many of us or in the society, how many of the how much people are attracted towards Lord and his pastimes, his form, his messages? Not much. Why? Although it is very obvious, because Mamevancha Jivaloke Mamabhuta Sanatana, everyone is part and parcel of Krishna. So in that way, we have an inherent quality of being his part and parcel. So we should have a natural disposition towards him. But that is not seen. Yaneva hatva najiji visamas te vastita pramukhe dhartarashtra. So let us see the purport. Very wonderful purport, although short but very meaningful. Arjuna did not know whether we should fight or risk unnecessary violence. Why he is confused between this? Because he thinks fighting is an unnecessary violence. Actually, it is a necessary violence. Because you see, there is no any option left by Duryodhana. Although they brought lot of suffering to Pandavas, and even you see how virtuous Pandavas are, even if suffering for 13 long years in the forest, and they are still wanting to avoid the fight. That's the reason they have gone into that compromise of mere 5 villages only. So, if Pandavas were very revengeful, then they would not have come up with proposals, and they choose the most, I would say, the most qualified personality to bring this message. Krishna became the peace messenger. But in spite of all these attempts, Duryodhana has spared no chance. So as if he is. So he is definitely near the war to take place. He is not sparing any other chances. Okay. So then how come it is an unnecessary violence? It is a necessary violence. Okay. How come a person who is too stubborn and too much desire and too much of envy towards his brothers, how come he is a suitable king for this Hastinapur? And the king of Hastinapur that time is so powerful that almost he is ruling the entire Bharatavarsha. So how a adharmic king will rule? So he has to be uprooted. So that's a necessary violence. So if some foreign material enters into your body, you have to cut that portion, right, and take out that foreign materials, right? Is it unnecessary violence? You may say that, cutting my flesh is a violence. It's an act of violence. How should I do that? No, this is necessary violence. You have to do it. Otherwise, if you do not take out this foreign material, that will spoil the ultimately that will spoil the entire limb eventually. If that stays, it will create some pause and then destroy the flesh and increase, and ultimately it will spoil the complete limb. So similarly here, this Duryodhana, he is a spoiling element. You see, in a tray of fruit basket, if an apple is, if apple is rotting, if one apple is rotting, and what we do? Will we keep this apple as it is? No. We will take this apple and throw. Why? Because we know now one apple is rotted, but eventually it will rot many other nearby apples also. A complete fruit tray will be spoiled. So likewise, this is a necessary violence. So Arjuna's mind, because of extreme compassion towards them, towards their relative, because of his material attachment, he is considering that this is unnecessary violence. That's the reason he's confused. So whether we should fight and risk unnecessary violence, although fighting is the duty of Kshatriya, or whether we should refrain and live by begging, whether we should fight, create, invite this risk of unnecessary violence, or we should refrain and live by begging. So between these two, he is not certainly decisive enough what is better for him. If he did not conquer the enemy, begging would be his only means of subsistence, because a Kshatriya, if he will have no kingdom, then how he will lead his life? How he will maintain him? Begging is the only option. Nor was there certainty. Okay, then Arjuna is thinking, let's see. Nor was there certainty of victory, because either side might emerge victorious. Even if victory awaited them and their cause was justified, still, if the sons of Dhritarashtra died in battle, it would be very difficult to live in their absence. You see, Arjuna is thinking, okay, let's assume I enter into fight. Then victory is also not certain. So, because in a war, anybody can lose and anybody can win. So, for me, winning chance is 50%. So, let's assume if I win, then what will happen? That means the other side of the enemies, my relatives will be died. Then how come it's a, it's after all, it's a lose situation only. Even though I win, it's a lose situation. So it's a win-lose situation. But let's assume we are defeated, then of course, defeat is a lose situation. So it's a lose-lose situation. So no matter what is the outcome of the battle, it's a win-lose or lose-lose situation for me. Ultimately, it's a losing situation for me. Okay. So fighting, I don't see any better here. Under the circumstances, that would be another kind of defeat for them. Okay? All these considerations by Arjuna definitely prove that not only was he a great devotee of the Lord, but he was also highly enlightened and had complete control over his mind and senses. You see, Srila Prabhupada is giving a different perspective, very enlightened perspectives. Yeah? You see, all this what happening with Arjuna, you see how soft-hearted he is. You see his analysis. There is no any selfish motive behind this, you know. So how he is so, how he is having so much control over his mind and senses, and he is concluding that begging, live by begging, should be certainly better than engaging in the war. So that means he has no such attachment towards the kingdom and opulence, and how he is, you know, this is a sign of virtuous person, and he certainly, you know, he is a great devotee of Lord. That's the reason all these qualities are seen in him. He has complete control over his mind and senses. His desire to live by begging, although he was born in the royal household, is another sign of detachment. He was truly virtuous. All these qualities combined with his faith in the words of instruction of Sri Krishna, his spiritual master, indicate. It is concluded that Arjuna was quite fit for liberation. Srila Prabhupada has given this statement also in first chapter. Arjuna, because of his these saintly qualities, we have seen in the first chapter there are number of saintly qualities. He is fit for liberation. Unless the why it is so important to control the mind and senses, you know, because unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. And without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. You see, if someone's senses are not controlled, then there is no chance of elevating to the platform of knowledge. So that means there is no chance of getting the real knowledge and self-realization. There is no chance. There is no chance of what is this knowledge and self-realization? Jivera Swarupa hai Nitya Krishna Das. To have that realization that I am an eternal servant of the Supreme Lord, my whole and soul purpose is to please Him through rendering service to Him. So that knowledge and self-realization will not come if one's senses is not controlled. And if this knowledge is not there, if this knowledge and devotion are not there, then there is no chance of liberation. How can someone will attain moksha or liberation? There is no chance. You know, this is being stated basically. Srila Prabhupada is giving us in little ahead of the chapter. This will come in chapter. You see here, let me take you to. This will come in chapter 3. Let us see. This will come in chapter 3, where Arjuna will ask Krishna that athokena prayattam papam charati purusha anichan api varshne baladiva niyajita. So why someone is forced to impelled to act in a sinful way, anichan api varshne, although he is not willing, then Krishna will tell in 3.37, kama yesa krodha yesa rajoguna samudbhava mahasana mahapapma vidhir enam iha vairinam. Arjuna, get to know this enemies, get to know this enemy which is kama, lust, extreme desire of gaining something, kama. This is arise due to mode of passion, rajaguna samudbhava, due to mode of passion, and this will later converted into krodha. This mode of passion will transfer to mode of ignorance when kama transfer to krodha. And this is basically mahapapma mahasano vidhir enam iha vairinam. This is the greatest enemy. And why this is greatest enemy? You see, again in 3.41, how to overcome this enemy. Krishna is telling the process. Will tell tasmatvam indriyani adau niyamya. First you control your senses. Indriyani adau niyamya. Bharatar sarva, oh Bharatar sarva, oh Arjuna, please, tasmatvam indriyani adau niyamya. So one has to control the senses first. Then why it is important to control the senses? Otherwise, this great symbol of sin, which is that great symbol of sin? We just read that this is lust, extreme desire. So this is this kama. Basically, this kama is jnana vijnana nasanam. He is the destroyer of knowledge and self-realization. Because this kama is the destroyer of knowledge and self-realization, how you will curb this enemy? By regulating the senses. First by regulating the senses. You see why Srila Prabhupada has given these 4 regulative principles. Unless and until someone follows these 4 regulative principles, it is very difficult for him to come to this level of knowledge and self-realization. So, how beautifully Srila Prabhupada has put this. You have to first control your senses. No meat eating, no intoxication, no illicit sex, and no gambling. You see, these 4 are very strong pull and strong attraction for any common person. So many other things he might leave, but these 4 things are very difficult to leave. So Srila Prabhupada has given this. So one has to really start with some regulation over the senses. Then he will be qualified, to elevate himself to this platform of knowledge and self-realization. So let us go to this. Without knowledge and devotion, there is no chance of liberation. So unless the senses are controlled, there is no chance of elevation to the platform of knowledge. One will not be able to know this, that his real identity, that he is the part and parcel of Supreme Lord, he is the eternal servant of him. That realization will not come. If that realization will not come, he will not engage himself in devotional activity. And if someone is not engaged in devotional activity, how? Where from there is chance of liberation? There is no chance. Arjuna was competent in all these attributes because Arjuna is qualified, because he has strong control over his mind and senses. Over and above his enormous attributes in his material relationship, he is quite fit for liberation. Okay, thank you all very much. We are stopping here for the day. This is very wonderful section. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Thank you all very much for your enthusiastic participation.